Hi everyone, Kate here to tell you about the books that I read in the month of April. We are halfway through May and I didn't mean to wait that long to film my wrap-up, but here I am and I want to tell you about those books. I'm excited to talk about them and hopefully there are some that you have read and we can chat in the comments. And the first book that I read, and this is from a series that it had been, I think, a solid 2 years that my friend Kate from the novel Nomad and I had read one of these books. Kate and I, several years, have tried to read a mystery book together each month, and then last year, we don't know what happened. Like, it didn't happen, but we're back to doing that this year, and it's so fun. We have several series that we really like. And this was from the Grandchester mystery series by James Runcie. I have to say, and this is a hill that Kate from the novel Nomad and I will die on, is that the books are so much exceedingly better than the TV series. The TV series it's jokes compared to the books. I wasn't that interested in reading the books after watching I think it was the second season of Grandchester. The first season I kind of liked, but let me tell you, don't give up on this series. It is such a lovely, beautiful marriage of kind of meaningful, just meaningful reflections on life, on morality, on religion, on what real true love looks like, not necessarily even romantic love, just all the relationships that you have. It is reflective and introspective with interesting things happening. I think sometimes the format of the books does throw readers off because it is not your typical mystery in that it's this big overarching plot and it's solved at the end. It is almost like 5 or 6 little novellas, but there is personal life carryover throughout all of those. And Sidney Chambers is a vicar in the small community of Grandchester. Although things did change a little bit in this as to his location. It's just such a beautiful series, and the cases are all intriguing in their own way. And what is interesting is that there seemed to be a really common theme in this one is that kind of how things fracture and break down when people in positions of power abuse their authority. And so, yes, just such a beautiful detective series. And I love his personal life and his wife and their marriage together, and then his journey through fatherhood. I really, really love it. So it had been far too long since I had read out of that series. And then I did end up reading, not during Middle Grade March, but I did read The Armourers House by Rosemary, Sutcliffe, and I gave this book 5 stars. It is one of those magical, magical books that falls into kind of just many, many delightful things happen in this book, but it does not feel saccharine. And her writing was so stunning. There were many passages that I underlined. It is about this little girl who moves into London, Elizabethan London. She's always lived in the countryside. And when she's first there, she's living with extended family and she doesn't know how she fits in there. She's also really not used to city life. And it follows her over the course of a year. And you get to know all of the cousins that she's living with, aunts and uncles, and just the little adventures that their family goes on in the year. So I just really, really loved it. It treaded that line of being charming, but not feeling sugary sweet, and it did it so well. So I highly recommend The Armourers House. It was my very first Rosemary Sutcliffe book to read, and I'm off to a great start with reading Rosemary Sutcliffe. And now I'm just thinking immediately, like this summer, I would like to make time to read another book by her. And then I read, with my Patreon book club, every other month we read a different Victorian novel. And this year we are expanding to not just UK books. We're doing global, like books written in the 19th century during Queen Victoria's reign. So not including the Regency era. Anyhow, we read David Copperfield though. And I was very scared to reread this because I wanted to still love it as much as I had the first time. And I was also a little bit nervous because I had started reading with Art from the Bookshelf Odyssey podcast. He's doing this really delightfully paced Great Expectations read along. And they're taking several months to read through it and really savoring it. And I could tell kind of, I read the first 3 chapters and was like, great, I'm really enjoying this. And then as soon as it got to Sadie's house, I thought, you know what? Maybe it's that it's springtime. I don't know what it is. I know I'm not in the mood for this. And I thought, well, I definitely shouldn't be reading 2 Dickens at the moment at the same time if I'm not really in the mood for Great Expectations. So my hope is that at a future Victober, I could really be into rereading Great Expectations. But I love David Copperfield so much. Honestly, this book is close to 1,000 pages. It could have been 2,000 and I would have loved it just as much. I know people are very loyal to the Richard Armitage audiobook. People are very enthusiastic about it. I really, myself personally, love the Nicholas Bolton audiobook. I think if I had had Audible when I first read it, I would have listened to Richard Armitage, but now I'm so glad because Nicholas Bolton is a wonderful narrator. And I just love, there is such a wide variety of characters in this and that are fascinating. Some of them are so frustrating, like the Murdstones and Steerforth and Uriah Heep. But others, and even though they're so infuriating, they're just such interesting characters to have as a part of a story. And then there are those beloved characters like the Micawbers and Betsy Trotwood and Mr. Dick and Agnes. And I just delighted in this book. I was not bored a single page. I'm so happy that I still love it. I didn't want it to not be a favorite anymore. And boy, is it ever. I really, really love David Copperfield. So altogether, just an extremely delightful reread. Next, I am so pleased to say that I read and absolutely adored a Miss Read book that was not one of her Christmas books. I don't know if any of you saw my Cozy Things chat with Gina Stanier from the channel of the same name, Gina Stanier Books. And she was talking about Miss Read and how, she hadn't really heard me speak about Miss Read much, but she really thought I would like her. And so I have had great experience with the Miss Read Fairacre Christmas books. But when I tried to pick up a regular book from Miss Read, it just seemed too quiet. And now it's just, the stars have aligned and it's just the time for me to be reading Miss Read. So I don't know if the library has physical copies of it, but what I love is that they do have them on e-copy. And for some reason, there's certain kinds of books I enjoy reading on my phone and others that I'm like, oh, it's annoying to read on my phone. And these are just perfect. I love first thing in the morning, starting out the day with a chapter of Miss Read. How delightful it is. So Gina recommended I try the Thrush Green series. So I'm now reading through the 3rd Thrush Green book, but in the month of April, I just finished Thrush Green. I loved it so much, and I am just so excited to read many, many more books by Miss Read. So I think this should be an encouragement to anyone watching this, that if there's an author that you really want to love and you just haven't fallen in love with him, maybe wait a few years and try again another time. It might just not be the right time. And also there's so many books out there. You can't love every author that everyone else loves, but maybe just try again in a few years and it might just be the right time for you. The next one that I read was The Unexpected Inheritance of Inspector Chopra. This was I had been wanting to read it, and then I was reminded again how much I wanted to read it because Miranda Mills did it for her March Comfort Book Club pick. So I read it way later, but it is such a delightful mystery. I'm very excited to continue on with this series about Inspector Chopra, who is recently retired. So it's not your typical kind of setup. And he inherits this baby elephant and has to take this baby elephant with him everywhere while he tries to solve this mystery of a man who is very much lower class and so not valued very much in the society that Inspector Chopra is living in. And he just knows that he was a human being, and so therefore his life is valuable. And I really, really love the integrity that he shows. And it was really an interesting plot, and I really especially enjoyed his wife Poppy and how she is just full of personality. And also there were just some really sweet personal relationship things that happened. And I really also enjoyed I think if you like the Commissario Brunetti series, that this is kind of like the India version of that. And then the next one that I read, which was so fun to read, was The Worst Witch at Sea. This is the 4th in the Worst Witch series by Jill Murphy. I love these books. They are just kind of delightful middle grade palate cleansers, and it's just very endearing kind of hijinks while they're at wizardry school. And this one, they got to go on vacation to stay at this beautiful house by the seaside, and all sorts of scrapes happen. And yes, I highly recommend it. And then if you saw 2 weeks ago now, I think it was, reading vlog, I put up a reading vlog from A Girl of Limberlost. And that was a reread for the Kindred Spirits book club. And I really love this book. It has its flaws. It's one of those, in the book club, there was kind of mixed opinions on the book. Nobody really hated it outright, but there were some people that were kind of like, yeah, it just didn't thrill me. But it was such a fun discussion nevertheless. And it's just, something about this book just captivates me. And it's never going to be, you know, ranked up there as one of my top 10 books, but there's something about it. It has a special place in my heart, and I definitely will reread it at some point in the future. Yeah, I really liked it. So it was fun. It was fun to revisit that story, and which is set in the Limberlost, which is a swamp in Indiana, and Elnora, and she really desperately wants to be able to go to school and just learn as much as she possibly can. She just has this voracious appetite for knowledge, and her getting to go to school, and then as she grows up, kind of becoming the woman that she is meant to be. And she does have this very tense relationship with her mother. So yes, all in all, it was a lovely book to reread. And the Kindred Spirits book club, I really appreciate everyone that attends, is just so courteous and has really insightful things to say about the books. So this month we're talking about All Creatures Great and Small by James Herriot, and I'm sure it will be a really wonderful discussion. And for people that end up on the mailing list, email-wise for the Kindred Spirits book club, I always send an unlisted video that is a recording of the discussion for anyone that wanted to see it. Since people are, I don't think people would be comfortable with me just putting up as a regular video, but if you're part of the Kindred Spirits book club, then you just get a link to see all the discussions. And then the next one that I read was the start of a new project, and that is A Midsummer Night's Dream. I heard that it's good prep work for The Fairy Queen by Edmund Spenser, which I will be starting next month. And I really enjoyed A Midsummer Night's Dream. So I have a whole video going up about that. I'm not sure, I have kind of a Shakespeare project that I want to do. I'm not sure anymore about the pacing that I want to do with it, but I will be putting that video up and keep you updated on the Shakespeare that I continue to read, because I would like to read a fair amount of that. It's just, he is referenced in so many things, and I would like to be in the loop on those things. And the Literary Life podcast has also made me really want to read much more Shakespeare and just classics in general. And then lastly, closing out the month, I read Sad Cypress. This was the next Hercule Poirot detective novel that I had lined up to read, and I thoroughly enjoyed this one. This one is way up there as far as the rankings go. There is a woman who kind of was all set to get this inheritance from her aunt, and she is engaged to her cousin, and she and her fiance, they go to visit the aunt, and while they are there, the aunt has this ward, a young woman who is kind of penniless, and is a bit of a companion to her, and her fiance just falls head over. He is immediately just so infatuated with this ward. And so there's all of this kind of underlying tension and about where the money will go. And I don't want to give away too much, but I thoroughly enjoyed this one. It was just an excellent one. I knew the ending because the TV episode was memorable, but I still thoroughly enjoyed this. So I actually have realized, I think I enjoy reading Agatha Christie physically more than listening to her. Or also part of it is I don't really love Hugh Fraser's narration. I think it's a bit monotone. I love him as Hastings in the original TV series, but I don't really love his audiobook narration. So the Miss Marple books, I've seen several are narrated by Amelia Fox, which I love her narration. So I think I will just continue reading physically. This summer though, I think I want to read like a bunch of Poirot. I just forget how fun they can be. Earlier in this series, I had several that really bored me that I didn't get on with, and I think I thought that was maybe kind of like the norm for Poirot, but then I've had several real winners in a row. And I'm to the point now actually where I'm willing to DNF a Poirot. I kind of wanted to read the series in full so I could say I read it in full, and then I'm like, life is too short to make myself do that. So I'll just keep reading when I'm excited about one, and then if I'm not, move on to the next one. I have too many mystery series to be reading to just agonize my way through one. I hope that you enjoyed hearing about the books that I read in the month of April. Please let me know your favorite book that you have read recently, if you can remember your favorite book from April. Now that seems far away. If not, your favorite book that you have read recently. And I will be back with another video soon. Bye.